a WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Ant-Man film. Ant-Man is a 2015 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics characters of the same name, Scott Lang and Hank Pym. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the 12th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was directed by Peyton Reed, with a screenplay by the writing teams of Edgar, Wright and Cornish, and Adam McKay and Paul Rudd. It stars Rudd as Scott Lang, Ant-Man, alongside Evangeline Lilly, Corey Stoll, Bobby Cannavale, Michael Peña, T.I. Harris, Anthony Mackie, Wood Harris, Judy Greer, David Dastmalchian, and Michael Douglas as Hank Pym. In Ant-Man, Lang must help defend Pym's Ant-Man shrinking technology and plot a heist with worldwide ramifications. Development of Ant-Man began in April 2006, with the hiring of Wright to direct and co-write with Cornish. By April 2011, Wright and Cornish had completed 3 drafts of the script and Wright shot test footage for the film in July 2012. Pre-production began in October 2013 after being put on hold so that Wright could complete The World's End. Casting began in December 2013, with the hiring of Rudd to play Lang. In May 2014, Wright left the project, citing creative differences, though he still received screenplay and story credits with Cornish, as well as an executive producer credit. The following month, Reed was brought in to replace Wright, while McKay was hired to contribute to the script with Rudd. Principal photography took place between August and December 2014 in San Francisco and Metro Atlanta. Ant-Man held its world premiere in Los Angeles on June 29, 2015, and was released in the United States on July 17, 2015, in 3D and IMAX 3D. It grossed more than $519 million worldwide, and received praise from critics, who generally welcomed the film's smaller stakes than preceding MCU installments, as well as its cast, humor, and CGI sequences. A sequel, titled Ant-Man and the Wasp, was released on July 6, 2018. Plot. In 1989, scientist Hank Pym resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D. after discovering their attempt to replicate his Ant-Man shrinking technology. Believing the technology is dangerous, Pym vows to hide it as long as he lives. In the present day, Pym's estranged daughter, Hope Van Dyne, and former protege, Darren Cross, have forced him out of his company, Pym Technologies. Cross is close to perfecting a shrinking suit of his own, the Yellow Jacket, which horrifies Pym. Upon his release from prison, well-meaning thief Scott Lang moves in with his old cellmate, Louise. Lang visits his daughter Cassie unannounced, and is chastised by his former wife Mackie and her police detective fiancé, Paxton, for not providing child support. Unable to hold a job, because of his criminal record, Lang agrees to join Louise's crew and commit a burglary. Lang breaks into a house and cracks its safe, but only finds what he believes to be an old motorcycle suit, which he takes home. After trying the suit on, Lang accidentally shrinks himself to the size of an insect. Terrified by the experience, he returns the suit to the house, but is arrested on the way out. Pym, the homeowner, visits Lang in jail and smuggles the suit into his cell to help him break out. Pym, who manipulated Lang through an unknowing Louise into stealing the suit as a test, wants Lang to become the new Ant-Man to steal the Yellow Jacket from Cross. Having been spying on Cross after discovering his intentions, Van Dyne and Pym train Lang to fight and to control ants. While Van Dyne harbors resentment towards Pym about her mother Janet's death, he reveals that Janet, known as the Wasp, disappeared into a subatomic quantum realm while disabling a Soviet nuclear missile. Pym warns Lang that he could suffer a similar fate if he overrides his suit's regulator. They send him to steal a device that will aid their heist from the Avengers headquarters, where he briefly fights Sam Wilson. Cross perfects the Yellow Jacket and hosts an unveiling ceremony at Pym Technologies headquarters. Lang, along with his crew and a swarm of flying ants, infiltrates the building during the event, sabotages the company's servers, and plants explosives. When he attempts to steal the Yellow Jacket, he along with Pym and Van Dyne, are captured by Cross, who intends to sell both the Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man suits to Hydra. Lang breaks free and he and Van Dyne dispatch most of the Hydra agents, though one flees with the vial of Cross particles and Pym is shot. Lang pursues Cross, while the explosives detonate, imploding the building as Pym and Van Dyne escape. Cross dons the Yellow Jacket and attacks Lang before Lang is arrested by Paxton. Cross takes Cassie hostage to lure Lang into another fight. Lang overrides the regulator and shrinks to subatomic size to penetrate Cross' suit and sabotage it to shrink uncontrollably, killing Cross. Lang disappears into the quantum realm, but manages to reverse the effects and returns to the macroscopic world. Out of gratitude for Lang's heroism, Paxton covers for Lang to keep him out of prison. Seeing that Lang survived and returned from the quantum realm, Pym wonders if his wife is alive as well. Later, Lang meets up with Louise, who tells him that Wilson is looking for him. In a mid-credits scene, Pym shows Van Dyne a new Wasp prototype suit and offers it to her. In a post-credits scene, Wilson and Steve Rogers have Bucky Barnes in their custody. Unable to contact Tony Stark because of the Accords, Wilson mentions that he knows someone who can help. Cast. Additionally, John Slattery and Haley Atwell reprise their roles as Howard Stark and Peggy Carter, respectively, from previous MCU media. Slattery stated that his involvement in Ant-Man was not that much more than his participation in Iron Man 2, while Atwell described her appearance as being more of a cameo. Abby Ryder Fortson portrays Cassie, the daughter of Lang and Mackie. Greg Turkington appears as Dale, the manager of a Baskin-Robbins store. And Martin Donovan plays Mitchell Carson, a former member of S.H.I.E.L.D. who works for Hydra and looks to purchase the Yellow Jacket technology. YouTuber Anwar Khanna portrays a writer in Louis' story at the end of the film. Garrett Morris, who portrayed Ant-Man in a Saturday Night Live sketch, appears as a taxi driver. Ant-Man co-creator Stan Lee makes a cameo appearance in the film as a bartender. Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan make uncredited appearances during the post-credits scene as Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, respectively. Haley Lovett makes an on-speaking cameo as Janet Van Dyne, Wasp. Lovett was cast for her saucer-like Michelle Pfeiffer rise. Since Pfeiffer was Reed's dream casting for Wasp, Pfeiffer would later be cast as the character for the sequel Ant-Man and the Wasp. Tom Kenny provides the voice of a toy rabbit that Scott gives to Cassie. Development of an Ant-Man film began as early as the late 1980s, when Ant-Man co-creator Stan Lee pitched the idea to New World Pictures, Marvel Comics' parent company at the time. However, Walt Disney Pictures was developing a film based on a similar concept, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and although Ant-Man went into development, nothing came to fruition. In 2000, Howard Stern met with Marvel in an attempt to purchase the film rights to Ant-Man. In May of that year, Artisan Entertainment announced a deal with Marvel to co-produce, finance, and distribute a film based on Ant-Man. In 2003, Edgar Wright and his writing partner Joe Cornish wrote a treatment for Artisan, with Wright explaining that it revolved around Scott Lang as a burglar, so he could have gone slightly in the Elmore Leonard route, though Artisan wanted the film to be like a family thing. However, Wright believed that the treatment was never sent to Marvel. A year later, the duo pitched the film to Marvel Studios' then head of production, Kevin Feige. In April 2006, Marvel Studios hired Wright to direct and co-write Ant-Man with Cornish as part of the company's first slate of independently produced films. Wright would also co-produce the film with his Big Talk Productions partner Nira Park. At the 2006 San Diego Comic-Con International, Wright said he was intrigued by the story's high concept and character. Wright also stressed that the film would not be a spoof, but an action-adventure with some comedic elements and would incorporate both the Hank Pym and Scott Lang incarnations of the character. Wright said that he was looking to do a prologue where you see Pym as Ant-Man in action in the 60s, in sort of Tales to Astonish mode basically, and then the contemporary, sort of flash-forward, is Scott Lang's story, and how he comes to acquire the suit, how he crosses paths with Hank Pym, and then, in an interesting sort of Machiavellian way, teams up with him. The next February, Wright said that the project was in a holding pattern while the script was being revised, and that he had been doing research for the film by studying nanotechnology. In March 2008, Wright said that the first draft of the script had been completed and he was working on the second. Stanley tweeted in February 2010 that Marvel was prepping the film, and that he met with Wright for lunch to discuss the character. Wright noted that there was no timetable for the film, because Marvel did not consider the character to be one of their bigger, tentpole properties. So, it's more like me and Kevin Feige saying, "Let's make a good script that works. That's all about a great genre film, and that isn't necessarily relying on anything else." At the 2010 San Diego Comic-Con International, Wright said that Ant-Man would not fit in the chronology of the Avengers due to the origin story he had written not working in the MCU. In January 2011, Wright stated that he had resumed writing the script for the film following the conclusion of the international promotion for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and by April he and Cornish delivered the second draft of Ant-Man to Marvel. At the 2011 San Diego Comic-Con International, Wright revealed a third draft had been handed in. In May 2012, Feige said that the project was as close as it's ever been, while Wright teased the film by tweeting a pictogram of Ant-Man. In June, Wright spent just under a week shooting footage for a reel that would be used to test out the potential look and tone of his movie, as well as to decide how convincing Ant-Man's powers look on screen. The test footage was screened to audiences during the Marvel Studios panel at the 2012 San Diego Comic-Con International, with Wright confirming that Ant-Man would be happening. Germain Lucier of Slash Film felt the footage worked and was awesome, as it had a totally different vibe from the other Marvel films. It was much more like something you'd recognize from Hot Fuzz. Lucier, along with Katie Rich of Cinema Blend, also enjoyed the costume design choice. That October, Disney scheduled the film for release on November 6, 2015. Feige stated in January 2013 that Ant-Man would be part of Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and indicated in May that the screenplay needed to be modified in order to fit into the universe, as the project had been in development before the first Iron Man film. Feige also stated that shooting was slated to begin sometime in 2014, and that casting would begin towards the end of 2013. In July 2013, Wright said that he and Cornish had completed the script for the film and that Marvel allowed him to delay its production so that he could complete The World's End, as that film's producer Eric Fellner was diagnosed with cancer. In August 2013, after Joss Whedon, director of Avengers: Age of Ultron, announced that Hank Pym would not be Ultron's creator, Wright said Ultron was never a part of the story of Ant-Man, explaining that, just to sort of set up what Ant-Man does is enough for one movie. Wright described Ant-Man as a standalone film, but said it would fit into the larger continuity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, explaining, "I like to make it standalone, because I think the premise of it needs time. I want to put the crazy premise of it into a real world, which is why I think Iron Man really works, because it's a relatively simple universe. It's relatable. I definitely want to go into finding a streamlined format where you use the origin format to introduce the main character and further adventures can bring other people into it." Wright also stated that pre-production for Ant-Man would begin in October and filming would begin in 2014. The next month, Disney moved the film's release date up to July 31, 2015. Pre-production. In October 2013, Wright revealed that he was in Los Angeles to work on Ant-Man by tweeting a photograph from the production of the June 2012 test reel. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Paul Rudd were soon being considered for the lead role, though dismissed his consideration as a rumor. Feige stated that Ant-Man would be a heist movie, and that a casting announcement for Hank Pym would come before the end of 2013. The next month, Feige stated that Eric O'Grady's Ant-Man would not be featured in the film, while Rudd became the front-runner to play Hank Pym, and casting for the character's girlfriend had begun. Around that time, the filmmaker's intentions to shoot in the United Kingdom were dashed, because of a lack of studio space. which Wright believed was due to the plan by Pinewood Shepperton to add 15 studios to their facility, which was rejected in part by the local council in May 2013, because the project was eyeing protected land. By the end of the month, the film was scheduled to be shot in the US instead. In December 2013, Wright, a fan of the comic book since childhood, owning copies of Tales to Astonish 7 featuring The Man in the Anthill storyline and Marvel Premiere 7 featuring the first appearance of Scott Lang, stated that the difference between Ant-Man and other films featuring size changing is, other shrinking movies are usually about somebody trapped small. This is different in that he can actually change size and he can do that at will. So it becomes more of a power than an impediment. Wright also talked about the challenge of directing a superhero film, saying, "Shaun and Hot Fuzz and World's End are all R-rated films. I like the challenge of making a page-13 film. Because you've got to entertain in a different way. You don't have the same tools." By December 19, Rudd was in negotiations to star in the film, and Marvel announced that he had been cast as Ant-Man the next day. In January 2014, Wright posted a screenshot on his blog from the Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes episode, To Steal an Ant-Man, which features Hank Pym and introduces the Scott Lang character, with the caption, "Homework." Michael Douglas was subsequently cast as Pym, with Rudd confirmed to play Lang. Michael Peña was offered an unspecified role in the film, and filming was scheduled to take place at Pinewood Atlanta in Fayette County, Georgia, while Disney changed the release date once again, moving the film up to July 17, 2015. The next month, Evangeline Lilly entered early talks to portray the female lead, and Wright announced on his blog that Bill Pope, who he worked with on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and The World's End, would be his director of photography. By March, Wright and Cornish turned in a 5th draft of the script, amid alleged disputes on the direction the script was taking. As well, Wright and Cornish wrote a scene intended for the post-credits of Avengers: Age of Ultron that would have acted as a prelude to the film. Corey Stoll entered negotiations for an undisclosed role in the film, and by April, Patrick Wilson and Matt Gerald were cast in undisclosed roles. On May 23, 2014, Marvel and Wright jointly announced that Wright was leaving the project due to differences in their vision of the film, and that the studio was closing in on a new director. On the split, Wright said, "I wanted to make a Marvel movie, but I don't think they really wanted to make an Edgar Wright movie." He also added that at one point, Marvel wanted to do a draft of the script without him, which was a tough thing to move forward, as Wright has written all of the previous films he directed. Wright continued, "Suddenly becoming a director for hire on it, you're sort of less emotionally invested and you start to wonder why you're there, really." The majority of Wright's crew also left the project in the wake of his departure. By May 30, Adam McKay had entered negotiations to replace Wright, but pulled out of negotiations the next day. On June 7, Marvel announced that Peyton Reed would direct the film, with McKay contributing to the film's script. Other directors that had been under consideration include Ruben Fleischer, Rawson Marshall Thurber, Nicholas Stoller, Michael Dowse, and David Wayne. Later in June, Feige stated the film was still intended to be released on the July 17, 2015 date, with production slated to begin on August 18, 2014. Feige elaborated that much of the movie will still be based very much on Wright and Cornish's draft and the DNA of what Edgar has created up to this point, with Reed stepping in to direct and McKay reworking only parts of the script. Reed wanted to be sure that he wasn't just inheriting something or following someone else's lead, or wasn't inheriting something that the evil studio had watered down to be something bad. Feige continued, "He looked at everything, he talked with us, and he said, number one, I agree with the direction you're going in, and number two, I can add to it." McKay stated that Rudd helped him rewrite the script, calling Rudd great with dialogue, adding, "The two of us holed up in hotel rooms on the East and West Coast, and I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks we just ground it out and did a giant rewrite of the script. I was really proud of what we did." I really thought we put some amazing stuff in there and built on an already strong script from Edgar Wright and sort of just enhanced some stuff. Rudd elaborated, the idea, the trajectory, the goal, and the blueprint of it all, is really Edgar and Joe. It's their story. We changed some scenes, we added new sequences, we changed some characters, we added new characters. If you took the two scripts and held them up together, they'd be very different, but the idea is all theirs. One addition to the film was the inclusion of the quantum realm, which had not been featured in Wright's version. According to Reed, this was the MCU's version of the microverse, which could not be called that due to legal reasons. The alternate name was suggested by consultant Spiros Michalakis, a quantum physicist and staff researcher at the California Institute of Technology, to inject elements of modern physics into the script. Reed also offered contributions to the revised script, as did Lilly and Stoll, who contributed ideas to help flesh out their respective characters. Lilly's character received a fuller arc and more action sequences as a result. One of the important things when joining the film for Reed was emphasizing both Hope and Janet Van Dyne Moore, given the Wasp being a crucial part of the Ant-Man comics. For their efforts, McKay and Rudd were credited as additional writers of the screenplay, with Wright and Cornish credited for the screenplay and story. Wright also held an executive producer credit on the film. By the end of July, Wilson left the film because of scheduling conflicts brought on by the filming delay, and characters being played by Gerald and Kevin Weisman were cut in McKay's revised script. Also, Reed indicated that in addition to Georgia, filming would take place in San Francisco. The next month, Reed revealed that Scott Lang's daughter would appear in the film, and Gabriel Ferrari and Andrew Barrow were hired to make further revisions to the script. Eric Pearson, a member of Marvel Studios' writing program who had written the Marvel one-shot films, did uncredited work on the film as well, scripting the strip club scene and Stan Lee's cameo. After reading the revised script, Evangeline Lilly felt that the film was pulled more into the MCU than Wright's version, which was much more in the Edgar Wright camp of films. She added that, while Wright's version was incredible and would have been great to film and watch, it wouldn't have fit in the Marvel universe. It would have stuck out like a sore thumb, no matter how good it was. It just would have taken you away from this cohesive universe they're trying to create. And therefore it ruins the suspended disbelief that they've built. Arnim Zola from Captain America, the First Avenger and Captain America, the Winter Soldier was considered to make an appearance in the film, with concept art created depicting him in his robot body from the comics. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like